So the Canadiens come back from a long road trip, right? 4 games out west. A successful trip for that matter. We hear a couple of things going on. Sam Montembeault is getting the goal on Saturday and people are losing their minds. We'll talk about that. But, we're not talking about the fact that the Canadiens are number 1 in the division. We're not talking about the fact that Nick Suzuki has scored in 10 straight games. We're not talking about the fact that Cole Caufield is among the lead leaders in goal scoring. We're talking about the 2C position, the number 2 center. Stop. Let's talk some puck. Now, I could call this the "don't what breaks my stick" segment or whatever it is, but I'm not going to do that because this right here is complete and utter disappointment. I'm sorry, Habs Nation, but everybody who's in cyberspace is listening to all the pundits who are out here talking about the fact that the Montreal Canadiens, they may have options at the 2C position. No shit, Sherlock. The Canadiens are first in their division. Why do you think there's so much attention being drawn to them? It's not because of any other reason. It's not because they're struggling. It's because of the fact that the Canadiens are first. Why are they first? I don't know. There's a bunch of reasons. Before we get to those reasons, let me catch my breath. I've got a heart monitor on, so I got to be careful. And let's talk about our partners. Instacustoms.com is Canada's highest rated print shop with over 3,000 Google reviews and a 4.9 star rating. They offer direct-to-garment printing on all your favorite clothing, along with coffee and travel mugs, and they even offer embroidery. Habs won a Stanley Cup? You can win too on Stanley Street at instacustoms.com. CheapersT-shirts.ca has men's, women's, and children's t-shirts, all sizes, hoodies too, with over 1,000 products to choose from. Anything you need for merchandise or the best deals on everyday clothing, CheapestT-shirts.ca is your go-to source. Buy today, ship tomorrow, CheapestT-shirts.ca. As always, we thank InstaCustoms.com and CheapestT-shirts.ca for sponsoring the show. They're great partners. Nick, I've known him forever. In fact, we share a birthday, not just the day, but the year as well. So, a lot there to be thankful for, especially as friendship. But let's get back to what we were talking about, okay? The 2C position is, and I want you to be honest with me. Put it in the comments if you're not. Are any of you disappointed with the play of Oliver Kapanen? Are you really disappointed in Joe Veleno's play, given the fact that he's playing about 12 minutes a game? Am I hearing anybody say yes? I don't think so. Nobody's disappointed. Right now, everybody's extremely happy. Why? Because that second line of Kapanen, Newhook, and Demidov is, despite the fact that they're not playing huge minutes in the hockey game, are still producing. And they look good while doing it, right? Newhook's got what? 4 goals on the season or 5? Kapanen's got 5? Demidov is scoring points ad nauseum, contributing on the power play. So why exactly is Montreal talking about the number 2 center position in October? When you get closer to the Christmas, maybe, if the need arises, if there's an injury. But right now, what's the purpose of it? So that, mainstream media can get the focus off the fact that the Canadiens are kicking the Toronto Maple Leafs' ass in the standings? The Maple Leafs sitting at 500? The Maple Leafs with their captain being disgruntled because nobody's feeding him the puck. Hey, didn't we tell you that Mitch Marner's not on your team anymore? Stop crying about it, and instead of being a little bitch, do something about it. Try skating yourself. Try creating plays yourself instead of waiting for somebody to feed you. That's what real superstars do. Like Connor McDavid, like Sidney Crosby, like Nathan McKinnon. If they don't put the puck in the net, they generate offense for others. Stop whining. So what does Toronto want to do? They want to shift your focus to something completely different. Something that's going to get you pissed off. Something that's going to get you thinking, let's talk about the 2C position because that's what we talked about all freaking summer long. My God, man. Can we just stop for a second and take in what's going on here with the Montreal Canadiens before we talk about Nazem Kadri or Ryan O'Reilly or Pavel Zacha or the litany of second-line centers that the Canadiens could possibly get if 31 other teams weren't interested in them or 30 other teams weren't interested? Because there's going to be competition, right? But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's enjoy it. Breathe in, everyone. The Montreal Canadiens are number 1 in the Atlantic Division. Breathe in, everybody. Jakub Dobeš is impressing everybody with a 6-0 record. Breathe in, everybody. We're not losing games to start the season. We're actually off to a good start. Why all the talk about the second line center position. Why all the rhetoric about Nazem Kadri? I talked about Kadri in the summer. I brought up the fact that the Canadiens should maybe look into it, and everybody vilified me because, he signed until 2029. And you know what? You were right. I'm not ready, and I don't think the Canadiens are ready as a team to go ahead and put a plus 35 contract back on the books. We just finished getting rid of Shea Weber's and Carey Price's contracts. No more LTIR. What happens if you go out and you sign Nazem Kadri at 7, or sign him? You trade for him, right? You've got him for the next 4 years till 2029. $7 million cap hit, and he gets injured long term. And you have to put him on LTIR. You go back to what you were doing with Carey Price and Weber? Why? Is there a real need for that? No. If it was a contract like, say, a Ryan O'Reilly, that would make a little bit more sense. But again, O'Reilly's a little bit long in the tooth for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, just think about it, guys. This team is made up of a pocket of veterans that are around the 30-year-old mark, right? Like a Mike Matheson, as an example. Then you've got, Sam Montembeault just turned, 29 years old or 28 today? So he's getting up there to the 30 mark, right? Why in the world do you want to add guys that are over 30? They have a limited shelf life. Injuries come a little bit more often when you're over 30, right? So when you're looking at that and you're thinking Kadri, yes, Kadri can still put up points. He's got 8 points in 11 games to start the season. Yes, I get it. But the one thing about Kadri is that, number one, you don't know what the future holds as far as his body being able to continue to play at the same level for the next 3-4 years for the Canadiens. And then the other part about it is the absolute brain farts that he has in the playoffs. How many times have we seen him cost the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames position? Now, granted, with the Flames, they haven't made the playoffs all that often with him in the lineup. But think back to when he was with Toronto. How many times did he get suspended in the playoffs and really put the Leafs behind the 8 ball because he was too stupid to realize that he couldn't do what he was doing on the ice in a playoff game? That it was going to put his team at a disadvantage. So you really want to bring that on, right? You want to bring that to the Canadiens, who right now have a fantastic room, have a camaraderie that every other team in the league is salivating at and wants to have on their own locker room. But no, let's screw that up by bringing somebody who has character issues. Guys, it's not all about talent with this team. And I think you have to come to realize that. It's about camaraderie. It's about chemistry. It's about the fact that when you go to the rink, everybody that's in that room wants to see each other, wants to play for each other, wants to, go to war for each other. But instead, you want to bring in a guy who played for a team who nobody gave a shit about anybody else, right? Like if you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, you can't tell that there's absolutely zero character in that locker room, right? I mean, there's no gelling, there's no nothing. And you've got a coach behind the bench that looks like he's going to blow a gasket every 5 minutes. I mean, and that's not to disparage Craig Berube. He's a good coach, but you know what? He's not the coach that team needs. They need somebody like a Marty St. Louis who's going to be, who's going to bring that communication to the next level, who's going to talk to those guys nonstop, who's going to build that camaraderie in the room that he wanted as a player. It's fickle, man. And when you look at the 2C options, right, aside from Kadri, who, in my opinion, no, you don't go out and get him. I don't want him in this lineup because as I said, he's going to be a problem. Whether it's discipline-wise or whether it's injury-wise, something's going to happen. And at $7 million, even if the cap's going up to $130 million in a couple of years, I don't want to have that burden on my books. Not like I did with Weber and Price, as I mentioned before. You look at Ryan O'Reilly. Ryan O'Reilly and the Nashville Predators might be a good fit for Montreal. O'Reilly's got 1 year left on his contract, so it's not a really long gamble, much like the Patrick Laine contract. So I get the idea of, actually doing that. But then think about it for a minute when it comes to other options. Some people have mentioned Bo Horvat. The Islanders are not too thick at center. I doubt Horvat's going anywhere. You take a look around the league. Guys that are good second-line centers have been locked up long-term already. So if you want to get a guy like an O'Reilly to add him, the thing is, you're going to slow down your second line because Kapanen, Newhook, and Demidov actually play at the same speed, at the same level. They're able to penetrate the zone with speed and wreak havoc on the defense. A guy like O'Reilly isn't necessarily as quick as those guys, so that might be a detriment, right? O'Reilly right now, at the age he's at, despite the fact that he can produce, I think he'd be more suited to be the third line center a la Joe Veleno, right? In between a couple of guys like Bolduc and Doc. I think that would be the perfect spot for a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, but not the second line. O'Reilly's going to be counted out to take important faceoffs and to kill penalties and maybe be on the second power play unit if that's what the Canadiens would think to do with him. But beyond that, I'm not convinced that Ryan O'Reilly can be the answer to the 2C position issue. You take a look around the league, like I said, Bo Horvat's not going anywhere. I swear to God, he's not going anywhere. I don't see Matthew Darche getting rid of a center when he needs centerman, right? And when you look at other teams around the league that require center depth, teams like the Philadelphia Flyers, teams like the Vancouver Canucks, I mean, they're going to throw everything and then some to get a second line center, to get depth at the center position. And I don't think that's a position that Montreal wants to put themselves in. We've heard Kent Hughes say, yeah, we need to spend to get if we can. But he's not going to overspend to get. And that's the plus for Montreal. You've got a guy in there who's got half a brain. He's not Marc Bergevin, who's going to throw crazy contracts at people and crazy trade situations. Well, actually, Bergevin can never pull off a trade, so forget about that. It's not PlayStation, right? But think about it for a minute. You've got two men in Gordon and Hughes who have explicitly said that they're not going to go far away from the plan just to go out of their way to get an asset. Think, 2 years down the road, you've got Michael Hage possibly being in the Canadiens lineup. A couple of years down the road, Jacob Fowler could be the Montreal Canadiens' #1 goaltender. That is where your window is. Up until you get to that part of the window, everything that comes before that is still part of your rebuild. Those are going to be your final pieces. Hage and Fowler. And possibly Reinbacher, who, by the way, just got assigned to the Laval Rocket because his hand is healed and he's ready to get into the lineup sooner rather than later. And that's great news for both the Canadiens and Reinbacher. I mean, the injury was unfortunate. It's great to see him back. But getting back to that 2C position, we know the Canadiens have said they're not willing to let go of an asset like Hage or Reinbacher to get that second line center position. Maybe a Meshar, maybe a Luke Tuck, maybe an Owen Beck. The list goes on. But is it going to be enough compared to some of the other teams and what they're able to offer in order to get those players? There's always somebody who has a little bit more. And given the fact guys like Kadri, for example, has I believe it's a 13-team no-trade clause. So there's 18 other teams in the league that could possibly get traded to without being told. I mean, the Canadiens are probably part of that list. But think about it. Why in the world would you do it? Why handcuff your team and put $7 million on your cap for a guy who may or may not fill a gap? There's no guarantees, obviously, no matter who you might get. But at the end of the day, it's not that. And we have to stop as a fan base thinking everything is possible. Those days are gone. The 80s and 90s, they've gone out the window. It's a salary cap world. There are implications for everything. Okay? In a league where you know in the next couple of seasons, you're going to have to re-sign Demidov long term. You're going to have to re-sign other prospects long term that come up through. You know, what happens with Jakub Dobeš? If Dobeš continues to play the way he does, and he's in consideration for the Calder already, given that he's won 6 straight games, that's a little stretch for me. But, you know, even at that, you know, you've got Oliver Kapanen. He's in consideration for the Calder already. So what does that mean? Every time a player is in consideration for something at a higher level than the National Hockey League, it costs dinero. So you're going to take that possibility of being able to re-sign guys that you've developed internally and who have been part of the fabric of your organization for multiple years. You're just going to let them go and you're going to trade them away. I think that's what's important here to realize is that if you have those guys that have the ability to play, the confidence of the coach. We hear Marty St. Louis talk all the time about Kapanen's intelligence, about Demidov's ability to create plays, about all those things. You know, how he's looking forward to Reinbacher joining the Canadiens at a certain point. I mean, there's no two ways about this. The Canadiens are developing players at a rate that we've never seen probably in the last 20 years. Going back to when Sylvain Lefebvre was the coach of the Hamilton Bulldogs and we couldn't develop a cold, let alone a player. Now, we've got pieces in place like Pascal Vincent and others who are, Adam Nicholas. You look at Nick Bobrov and Marty Lapointe drafting players, by committee. It's not them only. It's not like Trevor Timmins, who was, the be-all, end-all of who we were going to draft. It was done by committee. And you've got maybe 12 people around the table, all of them giving their feedback and a consensus as far as who's going to get picked at the draft. It's so refreshing to see. So the organization is in a good place. Don't mess that up by going and throwing shit at the wall to see if it sticks. All right? I want to stop this right now as a fan. I'm not talking after this show. I'm not talking about a second line center position until around Christmas. I'm going to wait. And another thing I want to bring forward is this whole notion about the, American Thanksgiving being the deadline for teams that are going to make it or break it as far as the playoffs are concerned. I seem to remember a certain Montreal Canadiens team that was in last place last season at Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden they made the playoffs. I seem like a couple of years ago, I seem to remember a team like the St. Louis Blues who in January were in last place in their division, and they won the Stanley Cup. Now, you can call it a fluke. You can call it, Jordan Binnington getting hot, the team starting to gel and playing like a team, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is, in the last 5 years, there are at least 2 teams that have gone beyond the Thanksgiving mark and made the playoffs. So can we stop looking at that as the litmus test as far as, are you going to blow it up to tank for your draft picks? And the other part is, even if you get a top 5 pick, and this year the draft is excessively deep. I don't have the list in front of me, but I've heard wonders about what's coming up through the draft, starting with Gavin McKenna and moving down the list. But think about what Montreal looks like right now and how their prospects look. Guys like Bryce Pickford, who's tearing it up in Medicine Hat, or Alexander Zdorovsky, who's playing excessively well in Russia. There is a lot in the pipeline for Montreal to look forward to. We're no longer the laughing stock. We're back to where we were in the 80s and 90s, where the cupboards were full and you didn't know what to do with what was there. The recipe could be different depending on which player you decide to put in the lineup. And it's not all about what it says on a piece of paper and what stats the player puts up. It's about character. It's about camaraderie. It's about gelling. It's about every player in that locker room, from player 1 to player 22. So if that 2C that you call it all elusive, but right now I think the Canadiens actually have a 2C that they can work with in Oliver Kapanen. Right? He hasn't screwed up yet. He's been good in his own zone. He's creating plays. He's creating offense. He's scoring goals. I don't see a problem. Do you? So why are we talking about the 2C all over again? If Oliver Kapanen can fill the gap of the 2C for the next 2 seasons, we're golden. No need to go out and trade for a second-line center. You could actually go out and draft another one if you want, given the depth of the draft that's coming up. So let's stop. As I said earlier, take a deep breath. Enjoy what's going on around you. Now, looking forward, Sam Montembeault starting on Saturday, and the world's lost their minds. Oh, how can you start Montembeault? Dobish is red hot. I said this yesterday. I'm going to say it again now. Number one, Sam Montembeault has deserved the right to be able to win back his net. He's done enough for this team to say, give him a little bit of respect and say, okay, maybe he hasn't had the start that he'd like, but maybe he can get back to form after a few days of practice with Eric Raymond. It's possible. Will it be perfect? Probably not. He'll probably be nervous to start the game, but the minute he makes a couple of good saves, the minute he feels the rubber a little bit, we may very well see a little bit more confidence out of Montembeault, because right now, he's got the confidence of a Caden Primo when he gets at the nets. That's going to change. He knows better than that. He's gone through worse adversity than he has at this point of the season. And luckily for the Canadiens and for Montembeault, he's not being forced to go back in nets without that confidence because of the fact that Jakub Dobish has been able to hold the fort. Now, that's not to say that Montembeault should outright be the number one goaltender. In fact, I think right now, until Montembeault shows that he can put a couple of games together in sequence that show that he's back in form, I think they should platoon. So go with Dobish on Saturday. Go with Montembeault on Saturday versus the Ottawa Senators. The game after that, go back to Dobish and see who's the hot hand. And you know what? If both goaltenders play well, then go 1-1 until you hit a back-to-back. It's as simple as that. There's no real urgency to put either goaltender in because they're both going to end up playing well. And what does that do? That actually bodes well for Montreal. They're in a great position. There's no reason to panic at all. And you know what? Like I said, I've been hard on Monty. I want him to be better than he is. Yes, I've been hard on him. But it's not because I don't like the guy. It's because I think the corrections that he can make are simple. They're easy. And he should be able to do them without batting an eye. So let's see what he does on Saturday. And we'll preview that game in tomorrow night's show. And talk a little bit about the Ottawa Senators, because after all, the Senators are going to be amongst the teams vying for the top of this division. Right now, Montreal's right there, but Ottawa has a good hockey club. So we'll talk about the people on the Ottawa Senators that are driving the bus right now. We'll talk a little bit about how that team looks moving forward. And we'll talk about what the Canadiens should look for as far as their opponent on Saturday. Thanks again to instacustoms.com and cheapesttshirts.ca for supporting the program. And you saw it before. I'll show it again. Make sure you give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, get notified. Thanks for watching, and look forward to the preview tomorrow night.